The good news is we're living longer and longer than we ever have before. The flip side of this coin is, what do we do when we need care deeper into our retirement years? In fact, it begs the question, when should you start planning for long-term care needs? I'm here with financial advisor Carl Gill. He's the founder of Asset Preservation Capital. Carl, this is a big issue today because, as I said, we are living longer. What kind of tools do you use today to consider long-term care?
Well, as you may or may not know, if you pick up an annuity, it's going to be paying you an income, and they will then double the income should you require long-term care. And as long as you can't perform 2 out of the 6 vital things like being able to dress yourself, cook for yourself, drive for yourself, those kind of things. And that's one thing about long-term care in an annuity. It's automatically put on a lot of them, or you can pay, or you can buy more enhanced long-term care with a little upgrade. So there are a lot of tools that you can use for long-term care. It's not like it used to be, where it would cover an infinite amount of cost. Most long-term care that's affordable today has some upper limits that's capped out. Usually it's like a life insurance policy. You're buying $300,000, $500,000 worth of protection, and once that's used up, it's used up. But that's just to give you one idea for long-term care. And as somebody said to me, it's like a Swiss Army knife. There's a lot of things you can use it for. If you don't need the long-term care, okay, you got an enhanced income that you can start taking money out for.
Right. And I think that's the great way to see these tools today, is they're not like they were 20 or 30 years ago. There are some individual long-term care policies, but they're usually not affordable over the long term. So something like this that you can use either as income, growth, or possibly turning on the long-term care rider if you need it. Now, like you said, there are sometimes limitations, meaning that long-term care rider might last for 3 years, or is it done by daily benefit? Can you maybe explain a little bit how the rider works?
Usually, again, it's a lump sum that is capped out. Like I said, maybe $300,000, maybe $500,000. Once you've used up that $300,000, there ain't no more benefit to it. But that $300,000 can be very valuable if you're having to be in a hospice care, or if you're in long-term care, or if you require a nursing attendant to be at your home 2 or 3 days a week. It makes a big difference.
For a lot of folks who have had family members go into long-term care, they're usually the ones who start the conversation. But for folks who aren't considering long-term care planning, when do you bring it up in your process? Is this something that we wait for later in our years, or do you start talking about it right away?
I start planting the seed right away, but I emphasize that most people start thinking about picking up long-term care in their late 60s or early 70s. Again, it depends upon your personal health. If your personal health is questionable, then you're going to want to do it sooner rather than later.
Right. And another factor is our own family itself. So if I came into your office and said, look, I had 3 family members who lived into their mid-90s. All 3 of them at some point needed to go into care facilities, either for mobility and honestly just for ease of life. So if you look at me and say, oh, you probably have some longevity in your family, I can start on one of these tools. What, do I wait for my 60s? Or is this something, as an annuity tool, I can maybe even start later in my career in my 50s and let this start growing?
Well, if you started earlier, it's going to cost you less money to be obligated to set aside for the long-term care. If you wait till later, it's going to cost you more money because you're going to be older and your life is not as long at that point.
Right. Have you heard these numbers? Apparently, if a couple reaches the age of 65 together, there's a 70% chance that one of you will need long-term care coverage.
Yes, I have heard that.
25% chance that both of you will. So now we're looking at 80% chance of needing long-term care. If you have an 80% chance that it's going to snow outside here in Michigan, you grab your coat, right?
You got it.
If we got an 80% chance that we'll need long-term care as a couple together, isn't it time to start having that conversation about long-term care?
Yes, it is.
All right. As a financial advisor, I appreciate your perspective on it. Folks, long-term care is one of those things that can help protect your own nest egg. We insure our homes, we insure our cars. Now we want to make sure that we insure your wealth. Call the phone number below so you can get started on your own retirement review and we can have that long-term care discussion. As we said, it's more of a Swiss Army knife today. We can use it for income, possibly long-term care, growth, and even pass it on to our heirs. Get started today. Call that phone number below, or you can schedule your own appointment at assetpreservationcapital.com.